retire at 40. It was possible. I had everything to make it happen, but I blew it. And it's all because I ignored this one stupidly simple rule, simple money rule. If you don't know this, you could waste years of your life working for no reason, like many people do. But if you apply it, you might retire sooner than I tried to do. For years, I actually did everything right. And on my 40th birthday, I was working at Chevron. And before I worked in Chevron, I had worked in Shell. Enough money had come into my hand throughout my career with Shell and with Chevron. Enough money had come into my hand for me to retire at 40. Because I turned 40 in 2005, 2nd December. I was a Chevron employee then. So much money, so many allowances. In fact, during that time, a year or two before then, Chevron had developed an app, an internal app at the time that allowed every single employee to see how much money the company had paid him or her. For those of you in Chevron at that time, you will remember. So you could query that database and see everything you were paid since you joined the company. When I saw mine, I was shocked. I said it was not possible. Then I started going line by line. All the times I went to Escravos offshore, and then I was paid. All the times I traveled to San Ramon in California for work, and I was paid per diem for weeks. All the times I went to Houston, I was paid. They put all those things, and all the bonuses, the promotions. I was blown away at how much money had passed through my hands. So I did everything right. I went to school like I was told. I graduated top of the class like I was told, to work hard and to come out with a good grade. And I got a perfect job, because what job could be more perfect than working in Shell? And then working in Chevron, when they offered more than twice what Shell was paying me. So what could have been better? And yet, by my 40th birthday, I could not retire. I was still many years to talk about retiring. In fact, retirement at my 40th birthday wasn't even in the picture. But that was when I met a man who had amassed so much wealth when he was younger than I was at that time. He'd amassed so much wealth and become so financially wise and independent. So I met this man, and he told me this secret. Yeah, he told me this secret. You know, my 85-year-old mentor, he turned 85 just this month, earlier this month. He had told me, Ogbo, no person can get rich except another person shows him or her how. There are gatekeepers. And that was what this man was. You know, when he told me this secret, I just wanted to punch myself, because it wasn't about working harder. It wasn't about going to school. It had nothing to with going to school. It had nothing to do with being the top of your class. In fact, if you look at the world today, most people doing very well were not at the top of their class. So it wasn't a requirement that for you to retire at 40 or to become financially free, that you had to get 3 degrees, get postgraduate. It wasn't a requirement. But we were made to think that was a requirement because, okay, if you got the postgraduate degree, you get a better job or something, better job offer. If you get an MBA, you get a better job offer than that. But those things those things are nice, but that's not the secret. When this man told me this secret, it wasn't about working harder. It wasn't about going to school and getting good grades like we are told, and like many parents, stress and force their children these days. Go to school, get a good grade so that when you come out, you get a good job. Look, we've run that script before. That's not the secret to retiring at 40. And if that is a script you are running, breaking news, you are not going to be able to retire at 40. And then over this time, I also met people who retired before they were 40. And it's also on this one simple money rule. And then it turns out that 99% of the people miss this rule because it is too obvious. It is too obvious and too simple. And then even the financial experts and all that complicate it. They complicate it. When I tell you that simple money rule, that simple money secret, you are going to smack yourself. You are going to smack yourself like I did. When this man told me, in fact, when he told me, I couldn't even believe it. I said, something as simple as that? And he said that was his secret. But too many people miss it. So what is that simple money rule? Here it is. Your savings rate means nothing if your spending isn't weaponized. Type it in the comment section. Let me say it again. It's a quotable quote. Because a lot of people also think it's about saving. Saving is good. Saving is good. I was at some point, I started saving a little bit. I started saving a little bit of money. I even invested in index fund and mutual fund. At that time, when I woke up, I started investing, in mutual fund and all that. But the simple money rule that would have retired me at 40. You see, I thought it was going to be very obvious. Was if your savings rate means nothing if your spending rate isn't weaponized. So most people focus on saving more. So you hear it all the time. Some of us even belong to the cooperative. At that time, in Chevron, I was part of the Chevron cooperative and I was saving lots of money every single month. And the cooperative would draw it directly from my salary, from our salary at the time. I was saving a lot. But I was also spending a lot because I remember when Chevron gave me a car grant, I even took more money from my savings in the cooperative and added to that car grant, which should have gotten me a very good car, used car. And I added some more money and bought an SUV, which gave me so much trouble. So how can I retire? How can I retire like that? So your savings rate means nothing. Type it. Your savings rate means nothing if your spending isn't weaponized. And I'm going to show you how you could weaponize your spending, because that was a secret. That was a secret. So most people focus on saving more, save. That's great. But the real key is spending strategically. The real key is spending strategically. And then when you are spending strategically, you are spending from the owner's mindset, not from a renter's mindset. Because the renter's mindset can never retire at 40. But the owner's mindset can even retire even at 35. Some of you listening are in your 20s. If you do what I'm telling you tonight, you can retire even at 35. I couldn't, because I didn't know the rule until I met this man. Okay, so here are the 3 steps I learned. So I need you to make a note, and you can also type it in the comment section in order to own it. So here are the 3 steps I learned. So the first step is what we call the 10% freedom tax. Type it in the comment section. And those of you watching the replay on YouTube, type it. The 10% freedom tax. Okay, so most budgets tell you save first. That's what they say. They say save first. But that's wrong. You pay your future self first. Big difference. Big difference. Pay your future self first by buying assets that pay you. That is the secret to retiring. It's not working hard. It's not just saving money or joining the cooperative. So pay your future self first. In fact, when I met that man, You know the first question he asked me? He said, the very first question, can you put aside 10% of your salary every month to put into assets that will pay you? That was exactly his first question. I said, only 10%? I said, I can even do 75%. He said, no. 10% is okay. Second question he asked me, are you living in your own house or are you renting? I said I was renting. Because that was a big problem that many of us, big boys in Chevron, that's the problem we had at the time. Many of us, or let me talk about myself, because that's why I couldn't retire. I didn't listen to that man's advice because I was looking to buy a house at Ikoyi. For those of you who are not Nigerians, listen to this. So Ikoyi is like the highbrow. Like houses in Ikoyi are more expensive than most houses in the United States. And then if you've been online, you've been seeing houses in Ikoyi and Banana Island going for $3 million, $5 million. So at that time, it was expensive, but not in the millions of dollars yet. And I was also looking at buying a house in VGC. And I remember at that particular time in the early 2000s, houses in VGC, Victoria Garden City, in Lekki, were going for like 120 million, 150 million, 180 million. Today is like in the hundreds of millions. And I was saying, no. I can't go buy land in all those suburbs because I'm a big Chevron boy. How can I be living there? You see, but our junior staff, we used to call them junior staff, and then the casual workers, like the drivers, at that time, they were buying plots of land at Ejibo, at Mowe, at some of those outskirts of Lekki. And they were living in their own houses. But I was a big Chevron boy. How can I live in places like that? See, but those guys were better than us. They were better than me. Yeah, I was living in a big place. Later we moved to the GRA. Living in a big place, paying big money. But I was renting. It wasn't my own house. I did not listen to that man. You see why I didn't retire at 40 and why you shouldn't make that mistake. So step number one is that 10% freedom tax. It's called freedom tax because it is your freedom. You're paying your future self. And what do you do with that 10% freedom tax specifically? You don't use it to do charity. You don't use it to do as Shoebi. You don't use it to throw birthday parties. No. What you do is you buy assets that will pay you. Assets that will pay you dividends, rentals, royalties. Okay? So, if you earn, let's say, $1,000 a month, then it means that $100 will go to income generating assets. Underline that. Type it and underline it. Income generating assets. That is what's going to save you free. If you do not have income generating assets, if you do not start building it in your 20s and in your 30s, you are not going to retire at 40. You won't even retire at 50. How many of us in our 50s have retired? How many? There are I meet people in their 60s. They can't retire. And I tell you, the energy you have now that you're 35, now that you're 38, now that you're 30, it's not going to be the same energy, except, of course, you're someone like us, because I'm 60. I still have the energy my energy is bigger than some of you 30-year-olds and 25-year-olds. But generally, you're not going to have that kind of energy at 65. So if you don't develop those income generating assets right now, forget retirement. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen, okay? All right, then step number 2. So that's step number 1, the 10% freedom tax. Step number 2, the expense to asset swap. Type that. The expense to asset swap. Swap, depending on where you come from, okay? So it means that every dollar, every naira that you spend should either disappear, that is expenses, or it should come back, that is assets. Another concept I learned from the prophet Isaiah. It was a Jewish prophet that lived maybe 3,000 years ago or so. So there was a very powerful financial lesson that Isaiah taught me. He said that everything that comes into your pocket has two components. Every money, every income that comes into your bank account, into your pocket, has two parts. There is the seed, and then there is the bread. So he said that God gives his seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So your income, everything, every salary, every little catching that comes into your account has two parts: the seed and then the bread. What do you do with the bread? You eat. So that's the sustenance for you, your family, paying utilities and things like that. So sustain your life. So you eat. What do you do with the seed? You sow it. But guess what many of you are doing? You're in your 20s and you're in your 30s. Guess what many of you are doing? You're eating the bread and you're also eating the seed. But you should be eating the bread and sowing the seed. So there is the expense to asset swap. Every dollar you spend should either disappear, expenses, or it should come back to you as assets. All right. So instead of buying 30 million naira car, which loses value, why not buy a 30 million naira rental property that pays you 3 million a year? You see what we call the expense to asset swap. So instead of, I know that many of you like cars. Nigerian youth like cars. Car is like the biggest achievement for a lot of young people. So I put up a video saying, don't buy a car until you have bought a plot of land where you are going to build. And I received so much resistance. No, I'll buy a car. Car helps me to package myself. And when I package myself, then I can get jobs and all that. In other words, your value comes from the car. And so they can't give you certain jobs. You can't get certain jobs until you drive a big car. So when they see you, they will not now give you big jobs. I don't understand that kind of reasoning. That's not how my generation reasoned. I have gotten incredible jobs, done incredible jobs. Nobody asked me what car. When Stanford University interviewed me to work with them, there were like 7 different interviews, because before you can work with Stanford University, it was such a big deal. It was a hectic process. 7 different interviews, different instances, different people. Plus they hired a company, an agency in Europe that checked me out up to my village where I come from and things like that. So it's a big deal to work with Stanford University in the Stanford C program. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. They had to talk to my former employees, Shell, Chevron, that I left many years ago. Guess what? They never asked me, what car do you have? What car do you ride? They never asked that. Never. And I got the opportunity to work with them for 6 years. Okay. So expense to asset swap. So instead of buying that 30 million naira car, instead of buying that 30 million naira motorbike, that motorbike that on the road, everybody looks at you and do that. Why don't you buy a 30 million naira asset that can be yielding rental? So that's step 2. Okay, the expense to asset swap. That's step 2. Remember step 1. Step 1, the 10% freedom tax. Step 2, the expense to asset swap. So instead of making it an expense, swap it to an asset. And that's where delayed gratification comes in, which is what I'm trying to teach the youth. If you delay that gratification right now, and then you swap the expense to asset, within 5 to 10 years, there's no car you want to buy that you cannot buy. And then you are going to be buying your car with your profits. not with your wages. You're going to be buying the car with the dividends of your investment, not with your capital, because I call it capital cannibalization. The reason most of you, like me, will never retire at 40, and some of you will never, the way you're going now, you can't even do it at 50 or 60, is because of capital cannibalization. Type it in the comment section. Somebody, type it. Capital cannibalization. You are cannibalizing your capital. The capital you are getting in your 20s and in your 30s, you cannibalize them. Therefore, in your 40s, you can retire. Step number 3 is what we call the 3-year test. Type it in the comment section. The 3-year test. So ask yourself, will this expense, this thing I'm about to buy now, will it still matter in 3 years? I wish I'd asked myself, when I took that money that Chevron gave me, the car grant, and then added money from the cooperative, I wish I'd asked myself this 3-year test. Will this SUV I'm buying matter in 3 years? And then I can answer it for you, because in 3 years' time, that vehicle had become such a liability that I had to sell it off. But you see, there was a wiser Chevron staff at that time. When they gave him his own money, you know what he did? He invested heavily in the financial markets, in the stock market. The stock markets were booming at that time. And then he invested it. Within 5 years, my SUV had died, had gone, and been forgotten. But he offloaded his shares and bought a house. So many times, this thing we call money or finance or wealth is simply wisdom. It's not amount of money. There are so many of you I see online showing off. You are not wealthy because you're not wise. You're not wise. Wealthy people, and the wealthy people like me, you will never see them coming to show you their cars, their fleet of cars, and then mobile police people, and then armed security following them all over the place. No, that's not what it is. Okay, so step 3, the 3-year test. Will this expense, this thing you are buying right now, that expensive shoe, that expensive ashwebi, that your hair wig, I hear that some of them cost up to $1 million or even more. Will it matter in 3 years' time? All right. So, and then all this most urgent spending like new phones, always fail the test. If your all this new phone, okay, iPhone, I don't know, iPhone, whatever they have now, iPhone 17 or 16 or something comes out, must you buy it? Take it through that 3-year test. Will this your iPhone 17 or 16 that you're buying for $1,500, will it matter in 3 years' time? Okay. So now, I started it a little bit late, but I learned my lesson, and I have been very consistent with my freedom tax. And because I started applying that freedom tax for a couple of years right now, I have watched my portfolio grow. I'm not a rich person yet, but I'm well on my way. And because I implemented that advice, we have been able to get a place that we call our own. So I'm no more renting or wanting to buy in VGC. Okay, so what are you going to do about this? So if there is one thing that you're taking away from tonight's coaching session, let it be this. Stop obsessing with savings and start weaponizing your spending. Start weaponizing your spending using the 3 steps I have taught you, and then grow yourself, your income generating assets that will drive your financial freedom. All right, so this is just a little bit, an iceberg of the things you get when you join the Financial Freedom, the Financial Fitness Challenge. We are currently enrolling for class 5 of the Financial Freedom, Financial Fitness Challenge. You got to come learn practical skills, practical implementation on how to earn money, how to manage money, and how to multiply your money. And then you need to build a system for that. If you're 30 or 35, you should already have had a system for doing these 3 things. And that's what we're going to be talking about during the Financial Fitness Challenge. The other thing we're going to talk about is getting you to start investing in the financial markets, because many of us are not even aware of the financial markets, the stock market, the forex market, cryptocurrency, and all kinds of things. And that's where a lot of people in modern times are using to make a lot of money and to manage their money and to plan for their retirement. And so many people through the financial markets have retired very, very early, much earlier than 40. So the Financial Fitness Challenge is 125K, Nigerian K, or $125. But we are running the early bird right now, which gives you 20K off at only 105. So if you would like to enroll immediately after this, so that you can begin to implement the 3 steps that we talked about today, and you have access to the worksheets that will allow you to implement it, not just to hear it. DM me right now and say, I want to enroll. Just send me a message right now and say, I want to enroll. Send me the payment, the enrollment details, and then I will send you exactly that. So I hope tonight has been very, very valuable for you. I'm going to see you exactly the same time tomorrow with another mind-blowing session, very practical session, to help you to overcome the psychological barriers that keep you from having financial peace. And whatever happens, enroll in the Financial Fitness Challenge right now, DM me right now, and keep showing up, because you have no